that really caught my attention over here in the UK is Tom Swarbrick on LBC, and he's going to read out some stats, and they are of particular interest. Ties in with the last piece I did on immigration, Donald Trump's immigration ban, and the effects on cultures when you have a huge amount of people influx into your community, or just the build up over time. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll get back to you ASAP.
In front of you, and I want you to tell me what you think it says about Britain, because the problem with these numbers in isolation is that you could quite easily construct a few versions of the truth around it, and some of those versions of the truth won't be accurate. They'll be based on a potentially a fair bit of prejudice, or they might be constructed to explain away a version of reality that you find too uncomfortable to confront, or frankly, these numbers might tell us so little as to be basically meaningless and therefore not worth thinking about or registering. But here they are nonetheless. Almost 1 in 3 pupils in Glasgow does not speak English as their main language. According to data collected by the Scottish Government, 28.8% of students in the city schools speak English as an additional language, EAL, the highest anywhere in Scotland. The number of these students classed as EAL learners has grown by nearly a third since 2019, when 22.5% of students fell into that category. Data collected last September showed that out of 71,957 students in Glasgow schools, 20,717 spoke English as an additional language. This category covers pupils who are new to English and those who are still developing competence and fluency. Glasgow council bosses insisted that not all English learners were new arrivals, said the annual number of overseas enrolments had actually decreased by over 1,000 in the current academic year. The rise of EAL learners is also partly down to more precise recording of the numbers of students, they say. But the city still have the largest share of EAL students anywhere in Scotland, followed by Edinburgh on 22.1% and Aberdeen on 21.6%. By way of comparison, because these numbers are not very helpful without some context, for England, in 1997, around 7.6% of all pupils were recorded as having English as an additional language. By 2013, that had risen to 16.2% of all pupils. And as of 2023, around 20.5% of school-aged pupils in England are recorded as having English as an additional language. Now, what does this tell us? Because these numbers alone don't shed light on their abilities at English particularly. It sheds no light on levels of integration. It sheds no light on whether these are the children of multilingual households. English dad marries French mum, child speaks French at home, and so their fluent English is technically an additional language. That is a rather different version of the story than the one that says there are lots of people here who can't speak English particularly well, because that's not what these figures quite tell us. So what do they tell us? And what's the reality in schools, particularly in big cities, particularly as a teacher? You are standing in front of your classroom of your charges, and there's a huge need for interpreters or translators. The ability to teach the lesson to the whole class is limited because the lack of English from some of the pupils is such that they can't follow without great help, or you need to reduce what you are teaching them in order that the people at the back are able to catch up. Is that what's happening? 0345 6060 973. What does it say that in England, by 2023, 20.5% of school-age pupils are recorded as having English as an additional language? In Glasgow, as the figures have come out, it's nearly a third. What does that say? Rubina Qureshi is CEO of Positive Action in Housing, a charity dedicated to supporting refugees and migrants to rebuild their lives, and is based in Glasgow. Thank you for coming on the programme, Rubina. What do these figures tell you? What picture do they paint?
It tells you that there's a significant number of people speaking a language other than English. It tells you a good thing about people being multilingual. And it would be the same picture for every global city. So it's better than not speaking any language at all. And it's certainly good that people have more than one language. But I suspect this isn't actually about language. I suspect this is about what you're really talking about is yet another attempt to turn multilingualism concerning people who are not white into another dog whistle about migration and race.
Sorry, I take issue with that because I haven't at any stage talked about race at all.
Sorry, you haven't, but that's how it's presented to me prior to this programme, about people and how they learn, and the whole article in the Telegraph which was raised with me. So although you may not have, that's the way it seems to be coming. I mean, unless maybe I've got it wrong, and what you really want to talk about is the number of French speakers or German speakers.
This is the picture that one, as I said at the start, this is what one could construct from these numbers, isn't it? Either you can come up with a version of events that says there are lots of people in this country who are multilingual, which is an amazing thing and fantastic, or there's a suggestion that actually because of high levels of immigration, and again, race not a part of it, because of high levels of immigration, there are lots of children now in schools who don't have English as their primary language, and schools are having to adapt to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm. Has that not been going on for decades? You get French children coming into schools, you get people of different languages coming into schools, and the schools make the efforts.
Yes.
Is the issue about resources?
It's been going on for decades, you're right.
It's a cover for something else about immigration. I never mentioned immigration. I mentioned immigration, then you said it wasn't about that, and then you mentioned immigration.
No, you said it was about race. Sorry, you said it. You started bringing in race because they're non-white people. We've both been talking about immigration because obviously that is a factor here. And the difference, I guess, is you're right that this has been happening for decades in schools, and there are people who've been coming into the country who have English as an additional language. I guess the difference here is the proportion of those students, isn't it?
What's the difference? Sorry, are you concerned about that?
No, I'm not concerned about it. I'm pointing to the reality that there are lots more students in this case, schools in Glasgow, but also in England more broadly, who have English as an additional language.
Well, pretending that learning English is a barrier when in fact, children acquire languages very fast when given the proper support. So if they had the proper support, then of course they would learn the language even better. What we find in the work that we do is that many of the people who are trying to resettle here in Glasgow, who are from a refugee or migrant background, are desperate to get access to English classes, but there aren't the resources to do so.
Where have those resources gone?
Well, you'd have to ask the government and you'd have to ask the local authorities. What you can't do is turn around and say, well, that's the fault of immigrants. You can't turn around and blame political failure, as Keir Starmer said. I'm not saying that you have.
Right, sorry.
Let me speak Queen's English, one cannot assume that this is that the political failure of not putting resources in place are the fault of immigrants. That's what Keir Starmer said before he came to power. Now it turns around that he's literally kind of blaming immigrants for everything when he talked about the island of strangers. That's what this is all about. Let's just talk. Why not just get cut straight to the chase? Another reason to bang on about immigration and race, and to make this about race rather than saying, what can we
Why
actually
are we talking about
do
race?
About a situation? Can I just finish? What can we actually do to try to help people whose first language is not English to be able to get access to those classes? I think that's a perfectly legitimate debate to have.
Of course it is.
I mean, if you were French, you would be in the same situation. Nobody complains about having French classes or German classes, but suddenly an issue where there's children who maybe have to have access to English classes seems to be a problem. Unless we're talking about perhaps, let's say, Glaswegians who perhaps don't speak Queen's English, or is it because of the number of Glaswegians who speak Gaelic and not English?
Right.
Is that what we're talking about? I just refuse the premise, and the premise really, it comes down to all the time, it's the brown ones, it's the brown ones. They're now taking up more resources. This has been going on.
I'm so sorry, Robina.
This argument, no, you haven't. Maybe you're just born in this time and you've not got a sense of time before. But for decades, this has been used as an issue to beat up on immigrants, people of colour. This has happened for years, and suddenly you pluck a figure out, 28%, and the Telegraph picks it up and writes about it. Okay, so what? What are you going to do? What an intelligent society would do is say, let's get resources. For example, in Singapore, did you know that in Singapore, it's a very, very multicultural society? Mm-hmm. It's not the same as Glasgow. It's very different. Of course, it's different. But there, if you were to be derisory about people who were from different cultures within Singapore, you would be sacked. It's socially completely unacceptable. But another thing within Singapore is that they really pity the British. They really pity the British because they think they're so backwards in their approach to multiculturalism and about having a society that really works. An intelligent approach, one that doesn't cause self-harm to this society, would be to say, look guys, we've got 28% of our society, or within Glasgow, there are kids that whose first language is not English. Let's get more resources put into that. To turn around and say, well, where do the resources come from? That's a political problem, of course, that has to be addressed.
So
but to say that it's all of the people that could be part of your society and become potential taxpayers and contribute, is that not a better way to look at it? That's really what I'm trying to get at, to be honest.
I don't know that anybody is suggesting it is their fault. No one is suggesting that it is the fault of the people, particularly school kids, who don't speak a different language as their primary language when they might not have been here for very long. That would be deeply unfair. The question then is, I guess, of resource and the availability of that resource and the need for that resource. For example, in parts of London, in Newham, for example, in 2023, the borough there, very, very high EAL rates, 66.1% of students had English as an additional language. That tells a story about the country, though, doesn't it? If you want...
what stories does it tell you?
Well, it tells you a story about the change in the number of students who are coming into schools who need help learning English as a primary language.
Just want to take a moment to hear from Small Debts. If you want somebody to legally take care of your financial matters online or otherwise, send out emails, collect invoices, anything of that nature, you can look them up and they'll have your corner. Check them out.
Need an accounts team without the hiring costs? Small Debts provides full service invoicing and credit control, managing everything from invoice submission to reminders and follow-ups. We can send emails from your domain or ours. Let Small Debts keep the cash flow rolling whilst you focus on growing the business.
So let's get back into the info and these statistics. Interesting stats. And if they're true, what do they mean?
Coming into schools who need help learning English as a primary language.
Absolutely. But the fact that people come into this country from other countries, perhaps there's some other drivers that are going on. For example, the fact that Britain keeps going around bombing other people's countries or taking part in wars, which means that there's more people who are seeking refuge who will then obviously come into other countries to try to...
But how do you know this is all refugees? I mean, that there's no suggestion of it.
See, I'm just ripping the lid off what you don't want to really kind of make it about. You want to kind of imply that there's something else going on. You're saying that there's people who don't speak English. Are you talking about German speakers?
No, I'm not. Sorry, Robina, you are projecting
people of colour. That's who you're talking about.
Right. Okay. So fine. It must be some latent, covert racism that has just boiled to the surface. When actually this is
said racism.
No, you brought Robina. You brought race into it. You brought race into it very early. If we're going to talk over each other, we might as well not bother. I've let you talk. It's my turn. If you come on and say that this is fundamentally about race and you bring race into it, hang on a sec. When I have not at any stage mentioned the race of people, the colour of people's skin, at any stage. In fact, I've talked about whether or not these are people from different marriages, people of different backgrounds, different... The idea that you would bring race into it promotes the argument that this is about race, when actually at no stage have I suggested that it is.
So when you talk about immigration, is that not implying something? Or are you talking about French immigration? Or are you talking about German immigration?
I don't want you. Listen, I'm not going to patronise you. You know that immigration happens from all kinds of countries, of all kinds of people, from all kinds of places who happen to have this skin colour, that skin colour, and any other skin colour. Why does this have to turn into a question of race in your mind?
Everything that you're suggesting about immigration and newcomers, are you talking about Ukrainians?
Well, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, let's talk about Germans. Let's talk about French.
But why did you bring race into it? I don't understand why you're essentially accusing...
Why are you implying that this is about race by using coded language? You're using a code.
What's the code? Please decode it for me.
Difficult for you to say, see these blacks and browns, they're a big problem in this country. It'd be very difficult for one to say, I'm not directing it at you, I'm directing it at the debate. And the debate is really, and it comes from that Telegraph article, it's really about people of colour. It's not about people who are German or French or Ukrainian. It's about people of colour. It's part of this overall racialising of anything where there's resources concerned. Direct those criticisms at the political failure of the government, for example, in not having perhaps, let's say, a proper immigration policy and not putting resources in place to support people who are immigrants. Those people who are immigrants are actually making up the shortfall of a declining population in this country. Because population decline is a big, big problem. Not only that, they could be the people who you welcome in, as other countries like Canada, like Singapore, do welcome people.
Oh, we do welcome in lots of people. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that's the case. That's not really my experience. We're living in a country that's getting more and more hostile to people of colour. I see that myself. I see it in our society.
Well, you clearly
language. It seems to be like a code.
Well, you clearly see it.
I hope you had your fill with that today. Again, myself, Onyu Adia here at Corner Speak. Catch you on the next cycle round. Be good, be safe, be creative. Yeah.